All right, I'm about to ask you the most serious question, a question that will guide you to your destiny and show you your mission. Are you ready? So serious. Here's my question. What do you want to be when you grow up? Hi everyone, welcome, Happy New Year, welcome to the first Karma Cards of 2022. Is that right? Is that right? Is that right? Oh my God. That's right. I got it. Last week, I talked to you about crystals for 2022. If you haven't seen that episode, do go back and check it out. There is a crystal divination and it's super fun. Now, this week, I wanted to share with you a really fun exercise that came up during the new moon in Capricorn Spirit Circle. So every Spirit Circle, I create questions that are based on the cosmic alignments happening at that moment. And one of the questions led us to an activity that I think really will spark your imagination. And it is connected to the question I asked you at the beginning of this episode. To play this game, it's pretty simple and lots of fun. You might want to get a pen and paper. There's only one rule, okay? The one rule is that you have to take the limits off of your imagination. Okay, so I'm going to ask you some questions that's going to highlight some areas of destiny and even touch on your mission, the reason why you came to this planet. And in order to get the most out of it, you really want to allow yourself to get out of any box that has been created by the so-called world we live in and the things that we think we know, okay? All right, so let's play. The name of this game is Create Your Perfect Job Description. It sounds simple, but if you have a hard time letting go of like what's practical or what you believe you can do, this actually can be a quite tough task. So I would like you to take a moment and ask your inner child to come on out. And let's ask that version of yourself, because that version of yourself is the magical self. That version of yourself has unlimited access to imagination. And those imaginative answers, they're going to get you some pretty stellar results. Here we are. We're going to make up the perfect job description. Question number 1. What is your job title? Question number 2, where or what environment do you work in? Question number 3, what are your special skills? And question number 4, just for fun, how much are you getting paid? Or do you get paid at all? Is there something else you get by doing this job? Okay, now once you've answered each of those questions, I want you to go back and ask another set of questions for each one. It's pretty simple. It's just a digging question. So I want you to go back to question number 1, which is what's your job title? Ask yourself why. Why is this your job title? Now remember, you're making this up and it can be based on real elements in your life. For example, let's say you're a painter. Maybe that's what you want. And that's where your imagination could go is like, yep, I'm a professional artist or I'm a professional painter. See, there's a little bit of a difference between those two. So it can be based on elements of reality, but you might get something like, I'm a professional unicorn herder. I was going to say a hoarder or a hoarder. That might be a little scary though. Too many unicorns in a small space can't be a good thing. So it can be based on something that you really is tangible and you can touch. It can also be based on something that is so far out there. So with each question, you're asking why. Why do I want this? What does it get me? How does it make me feel is another question that you want to ask yourself. And once you sort of like, you start with the fantasy and what it is, then you dig into why you chose that. And then you dig in even deeper to how does that make me feel? The why you chose it and how it makes you feel are connected to mission and destiny. So have fun playing this game. Allow your inner child to come out and assist you. And I'd love to see your answers. In fact, I'll share with you one of mine that I got, and I'll show you how I got some answers. So there's a lot of things that little Therese would like to be, but one of the things that I fantasize about a lot, I've made Pinterest boards on, I dream of what it looks like and just kind of how fun it would be, is, let's see, what is my job title? What would I call this? Well, I know that my alter ego is the mystical librarian. So probably mystical librarian. And my environment is I run a combination apothecary and bookstore. And of course, both of them have sort of a magical bent, right? There's apothecary that might be more like health and beauty, but also a little bit of magic in there, as well as books that are about history, but also books that might be about history of other planets. So a magical apothecary bookshop, maybe throw in a coffee shop, I don't know. Just a place that you'd want to sit and hang out for a long time. And it also doubles as a sort of supernatural investigation agency. This is the environment. When I ask myself, why about all of these things, the why is because I want to continue to explore. I want to explore hidden worlds, hidden knowledge, and honestly, this is what I do, and I love to share it with you. I love to go explore sort of the outer limits of what we understand and see how far I can go. And how it makes me feel, it gives me a sense of definitely connection to something bigger than myself, as well as freedom and just pure joy. It's just so, like I could just get lost in it. Like even like now as I share it with you, I'm like in there, in that bookstore, apothecary, coffee shop, and I am just having a great time. So I want you to play that game for yourself. Maybe it'll invigorate you for the year ahead. It's not necessarily that we're going to create these things, although some of you might. It's more about understanding what you're trying to get. Like for example, I'm trying to explore information. I want more information. And now it makes even more sense to me. It's a little more tangible. This idea of playing bookstore, right? What I love is access to all the information. So go ahead, play this game, share your responses here on the comment section. I would love to see it and learn more about what's lighting you up. And now let's do some karma cards. The first karma cards for 2022. All right, for those who are new to karma cards, let me really quickly show you how these work. I have 3 decks, planets, signs of the zodiac, and houses of astrology. And I've already asked my team, what is the message you have for us this week? And I've got 2 sets of answers, one in red, which are action related, and a set in blue, which are outcome related. And all you do to play is tune in intuitively and decide, what do you need for the upcoming week? Do you need some action related guidance, or do you want some outcome related guidance about how the week is going to evolve? And of course, you can always choose both. And while you're deciding that, let me tell you the timing for this reading. This reading is for January 5th through January 12th. And the flavor of this reading, man, this is an interesting one. The first card that we get is the South Node. So the South Node, the South Lunar Node, is referring to our past. It's referring to our past. Interestingly enough, we get the sign of Cancer. This card is the zodiac symbol that also represents the past. And it represents deep level of intuition. They do say that Cancer is the most intuitive out of the whole zodiac, and it's ruled by the moon. So it's There's this intuition, feeling, past state that we're looking at. And then we get a little extra magic because we've got the 12th house, and that is hidden secrets. Now, sometimes this can be a little bit of a sad card about like what is, it's kind of like when you dig into do your shadow work or heal inner child work, this is kind of the energy that you're accessing as well. But in general, the 12th house is basically talking about your subconscious mind, which is the mind you can't know, but it can inform you. Isn't that interesting? You can't know your subconscious mind, but it can inform you. All right, so for those who are choosing action, your spiritual action is remember your feelings, seeking oneness with all there is. I feel like how it's connected to what we brought in before with the game is the point is to, you keep asking why and how does this make me feel till you get to that feeling state answer. Because that feeling state answer, that's your destiny. That's what you're destined to feel. That is what everything in your life is moving you towards. So if you want, for example, freedom, everything you're going to do, whether you're conscious of it or not, is moving you in that direction. Or if it's to create, everything you do helps that happen. If it's to explore, everything you do helps that happen, right? So our feeling state is definitely connected to our destiny, especially our desired feeling state. And the feeling state also acts as a GPS. The better the feeling, the closer to oneness you feel. Mental action at this time, reconsider attitudes from the past about philanthropy, okay? Giving freely. Whenever this comes up in the readings, it's always asking us to re-examine what we believe giving is. What is giving and sharing? It's interesting because we often have like a fixed ideal or answer, and this is where people get caught up in the shoulds and shouldn'ts, or I'm doing it, or I'm not doing it, or I'm not doing enough, right? So overgivers who are listening, please listen. You need to reassess the beliefs around what is giving and sharing. And remember, oneness or full unity includes every being, including yourself. So although the focus is dominantly service to others, we have to come from a place where it's the whole oxygen mask theory. On a plane, if the plane's going down, oxygen masks fall. If you try to put on other people's masks first, you're going to pass out mid-process. That's why they tell you put yours on first, because you're more likely able to help others do the same much quicker if you're taking care of yourself. So again, we're constantly being asked to remember, come together, that we are a part of all there is. And so we find that balance between focusing on giving to others and making sure that we have enough in our own tank that we have something to give to others. Physical action at this time. Now is not the time to use your intuition and keep your involvement hidden. Okay, that one's like, it's another weird one. We got to break this down. Now is not the time, because what the focus is to look to the past. When you're looking to the past, it's not that you're not intuitive, it's that you don't have to pull it from some mystery place. It's done. It's like the past is almost like something written on a piece of paper. The answers are there for you. You simply need to pay attention to your past. Keep your involvement hidden. That comes from the 12th house. That's, keeping your involvement hidden would have to do with the subconscious mind. In this exercise that we were talking about in this episode, your inner child is still alive. There is consciousness in you that is still a certain age. There's still the 1-year-old, the 5-year-old, the 19-year-old, all of it, every moment is here. It's active. And this goes into quantum physics a little bit, because you have to recognize that time is still happening. The past is still happening. It's like this weird moment that's in perpetuity, but your consciousness isn't there, but that moment is still active. So As far as like trying to guess what your inner child would answer, for example, the first time I remember someone asking me, what did I want to be when I grew up? I was in kindergarten. I was 5 years old probably, and I remember Mrs. Catano was my kindergarten teacher. So I know who did it. I know when it happened. I know where it happened. I don't have to project my mind anywhere to get the information. I simply have to turn inward and observe what's already there. So I can go back to 5-year-old Therese and ask her to come forward and help me answer this question. Just remembering my answer. I remember it because apparently it left quite an impression on people. She answered, my 5-year-old self said that she would either be a doctor or an Avon lady. So, two fields that definitely go together. Oh my gosh. My point is, you can access the little version of you, bring it forward in your consciousness, rather than trying to intuit what they would say. Really ask, like try to identify. I know that I have a very specific memory of being asked. You might not. You might not. But I would still choose a point in time where you feel your imagination was very strong. So I would probably go before the age of 9 to find a version of yourself who would be willing to play that game and answer you in a completely honest and non-judgmental way. Now let's look at outcomes for the South Node in Cancer in the 12th house of the subconscious mind. For those who are choosing outcome, your spiritual outcome is there will not be intuition to protect your faith. So as you're playing this game, and possibly just in the week itself, you might not get that strong of a hit initially on your answers. You just might not feel it, and that's okay. Right? A willingness to play, write it down in a notebook, set it aside, come back in a week and see if it resonates for you more, or if the answer is clearer than now. Because what I see is that also we're getting stuck in the past. The energetic of right now is just kind of this one of having a hard time moving forward. It might be that it's the beginning of the year. Many people I know are working on trying to let go of creating overly ambitious goals. I feel like just in general, we're all trying to be a little bit more balanced in our approach to that. Some of us don't feel like we have the energy. I know that we went through a serious energy upheaval that created sort of a cellular detox for a lot of people. Maybe you understand what I mean by that. Just think about cellular detox and you'll understand what I mean. But it's wearing people out, like energetically, a little bit worn out. Maybe you don't feel like playing. I know for myself, I've been doing my art practice, and even though I really want to do it, I've been having to do it digitally right now instead of with all the paints and the mess. Like I just can't get myself there yet. But at least I'm willing to show up, and I kind of feel like that's the energetic we're in right now. So this might be a little bit about what we talked about, but more or so, it's just the energetic of this week. It's just a suppressed energetic feeling. Mental outcome, anxiety about attitudes from the past, about hidden tendencies. Let me go back to the statement about cellular detox, right? So a detox is about the purging out of anything unnecessary in the body. And when we go through these energetic spikes, it does help us purge out things our body doesn't need, but it's also doing it to us on an emotional and energetic and spiritual level as well. When we're not aware of it, when it's kind of like you're just trying to live your life and it catches you off guard like that, that naturally creates anxiety. When you're like, I don't know why I feel off, I just feel off. I know people are feeling that way from time to time right now. Like there's just something off. And I just want to remind you that that's part of the process, right? So it's not like a perfect straight path. It's a little bit of a zigzag. It's a little bit of a teeter-totter. First the pendulum swings one extreme to another extreme until it finds its balance point, its center. So allow yourself to process feeling off and trust, even if you can't intuit yet, when does this feeling right itself? Because I've been there. I recently was there where I'm like, I just feel like all I want to do is nap. All I want to do is just shut things off, curl up, and just sit here until I feel better. And sometimes that's what you have to do. If you get caught up in, why am I not feeling better? How long is this going to take? It's taking too long. Do you hear, you can already hear the anxiety kicking in. It's more like I allow myself to move through this moment, and I know it's going to pass. It always does. And when you kind of hold that, even though you're like, I don't know when, I don't know how long I'm going to have to sit here, just like when the body is trying to heal itself, it goes through stages, right? So imagine you get a cut or an infection on the skin. At first, it's aching, it's throbbing, it's hot, it's swollen and painful. And then you're treating it, and it just feels like no matter what you do, it just keeps staying that way. And you're getting sort of concerned, right? You don't know, everything I'm doing, it doesn't seem to be working. And then one day, it sort of releases. It either purges itself in some way or it starts to reduce, and you start to see the signs of healing. But then there's other things that you have to deal with, like dry, scaly skin and itchiness and discoloration. And I know I'm being graphic here, but it helps you to see that in a week, it's what felt like it was going to last you forever was actually 3 days. And then the other part of the healing process lasted a week. And then a month later, you're like, oh my gosh, right, I used to have that little mark on, that little bump here, and it's gone. Go back to when you were first experiencing it, and it was like, oh my God, this thing is never going to leave, right? So if you find yourself in that place where things are low, you're not getting intuition, and you're feeling anxious that this might be the new permanent state, allow yourself to remember how the healing process works, and that when you're in the worst of it, it feels like it's taking forever. But then when it starts to get better, you look back and you're like, oh my God, that really was only this amount of time. And when you start to see that, you can apply it to both the spiritual growth and healing you're doing and emotional growth and healing as well. Physical outcome at this time: trouble resulting from the history of large institutions or overwhelming events. Well, yeah, this actually feels like it's talking specifically about the external world. And what we see are a lot of patterns in history being repeated during this time. Now, I don't believe they're being repeated because we're in this horrible cycle where we suffer and then we suffer again, or people are, too naive or whatever to learn from the past. I don't think that at all. I think that we're being shown something by a bigger energy. We are being shown something and how it operates, so that we may make a conscious choice about it. Either we agree with it or we don't agree. And if we don't agree, we state that disagreement. So I think I've talked about this in the past, but I'll mention it one more time here because I think it's very applicable. According to information from Dolores Cannon's research, in the time of Atlantis, when they were at their golden age, at their peak, the elders, or those who were elected, would put forth ideas of how they wanted to move forward with the society. Yet they would not do this without consulting the whole group. So everyone would gather, they would put forward the idea, they would tell them the intent of the idea, and they would ask if the people consented or did not. And depending on how people responded, the project or idea would either go forward or it wouldn't. And one of the qualifiers is that everyone had to agree, because if even just one person did not consent, it would warp the field of the creation, and what they intended would not go on as planned. No matter how much they tried, just one person saying no warped the project, and so they wouldn't even go forward. And that was at the height, right, of their civilization, where they were at the height of truth, honesty, integrity, and enlightenment. So what I feel is that the hand of God, the universe is here. It's showing us the way things have worked for not just 100 years, not just 1,000 years, but many thousand years of this sort of same process of creating drama, tricking people, getting them to agree to something, and it ending up being something that is, pretty horrible for everyone. And you can see it repeating over and over in history if you look back, that a lot of times what they have to get is the consent of the people. And if the people consent or can be tricked into consent, which is mostly what they did, then they would move forward. Well, what's happening now is these large-scale events, but we're being shown sort of the operations. And this is for people who look. You have to look. You have to look back. You have to look at history. You have to listen to people who went through it and see how it all unfolded. But we're being given the opportunity to look again at how things unfolded. And we can use our power to either consent or not consent, and recognize that when we give it consent, we give it energy, which helps it manifest. And when we say no to something, it warps it, and it actually breaks down the intention of the group putting it forward. And I've talked about this group a lot. They're the negative group. They're on the negative timeline, the timeline that's going to a finite ending. And it's a timeline about the ego ruling, disconnection, control, ultimately. And they're also obsessed with death, right? They're considered a death cult in a way. So these guys have been playing this game where they've been manipulating people to give consent over and over, centuries of this, family after family doing this. And this time we've got these large, overwhelming events happening again. But I want to remind everyone, we're in an ascension cycle. So no matter what it looks like, there is nowhere to go but up. Now, this doesn't mean there isn't trouble, there isn't drama. It doesn't mean that people don't get hurt. I wish it wasn't that way. But what it does mean is that their plan ultimately fails. And they know this. They know this. What they don't want is people looking at anything. That's why there's so much censorship. That's why there's all this disinformation word floating around there, because they don't want you to look. Because if you actually connect the dots, what you end up seeing is that control structure over and over again. And as soon as you say, fuck no to that, I do not consent, you've just used your energy to warp the field. So as you see these events unfold, understand what's operating behind it, because things aren't as they appear on the surface. And that might be a phrase that you have to have a lot of faith to believe, and I understand it. And there's also a lot of perspectives about what's happening. I'm just sharing with you what I understand energetically, what gets shared to me intuitively, and how I've perceived it, especially when I listened to a TEDx speaker who was a woman who survived the Holocaust from Austria. She explained how Austria was taken over, and it was completely eye-opening and a little bit freaky too. But when you start seeing it, you see the pattern, and then you understand that, again, this is the year every structure and institution that's been a part of this ends up falling apart. And at the same time, we rise up and build the new structure. So the more we lean into that we actually have an opportunity here to create what becomes the golden age for us, the more you can ground in this energy that you're a vital part of it. And that's why I want you to get in touch with your destiny and your sense of mission, because then you'll know exactly where you're supposed to be to help us build the new earth. And with that, I send you so much love. Mwah! Don't let that reading freak you out. Just understand the inner workings behind it. And I will see you next week. Thank you for watching. Subscribe now and hit the notification bell so that you know the next time I release a new video. Until then, stay magical.